everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on BogRadio.fm, where we talk to screenwriters and comedians and actors and you name it in the entertainment business. We talk about it right here, and we have one of those people right now, a comedian from the DMV area, my old stomping grounds. That would be D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. He's a native, though, of New Yorker, won the Chosen competition in the region, and was runner-up in the International Boston Comedy Festival, where he was chosen over 200 international comedians. He's also the host of a sensational YouTube game show called Comic Genius. With no further ado, please welcome the very talented Coy LaSone. What's up, Coy?
Hey, how are you doing there, Maurice Brown? What's going on there? Thank you so much for that intro, man. Appreciate you. Love it.
Hey,
I love your intro of your show, by the way.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. It is great to have you on the show. And I had no idea that you were from the DMV area. I did comedy up there for like 13 years, 10, 12 years, something like that. And before I moved out of the area, and we have a lot of common friends in that area. I mean, you know, Roxanne David, Belina Metcalf, and I can go on and on. I mean, all the Willie Brown, Jason Earls is not from that area, but he's a good friend of mine who's down in Texas. But you have a show on YouTube, a game show on YouTube called Comic Genius, which I find very intriguing and entertaining. Tell our audience about your game show.
Well, the name of the show is the Comic Genius Show. Okay. And it started when COVID was happening, and a lot of comedians did not have anything to do. A lot of them were out of work, and I had to do something. I wanted to come up with something creative, and me and a buddy of mine, he said, "Look, I'm gonna give you what, a week to come up with something." And okay. I said, "Okay," because he's very tech savvy. So I was like, "All right, I'll come up with something." And it came up that we decided to do a comedy game show for comedians, and it just turned out to be really cool. A lot of comics were available to be on the show, and I mean, it tests their wits. They do stand-up, they do improv right there in their home. It was a lot of fun. We have celebrities, semi-celebrity judges to kind of give them a little tips on the comedy game and some little bit of critique. So it's kind of like American Idol meets Last Comic Standing meets Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's a lot of fun, and we're on YouTube, called the Comic Genius Show on YouTube, Comic Genius Show on YouTube. So it's been a blast. And now that COVID, of course, is over, we've taken it a step further, Maurice. Now we've taken it to Baltimore. We've taken it to Howard University. We've taken it to the state of Maryland, and we're looking to continue to do it. And now we have a live audience, and they're expecting more of these type of shows. So now we have, Maurice, we have spin-offs of the Comic Genius Show. No longer is it just the competition, a friendly competition where they have a chance to win out of a set of comedians, but now we have a showcase. So some of those comedians that actually won or were runner-ups, now they get to showcase their talent in front of an audience. And we've done that a few times, and that was really cool. And then we have another offshoot from the audience actually seeing the comedians be put to the test. Well, guess what, Maurice? The audience was like, well, how can I be a part of this? So then we decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and make a game show for the audience. So now the audience are now participating in the game, the Comic Genius Show. And we call that the Comic Genius Show Game Night. And we play a lot of fun games and a lot of trivia. And it's just, they want more of it. So they're asking all the time, Maurice, when is the next Comic Genius Show? So I appreciate you for letting your audience know about it.
Yeah, and I highly recommend folks that you check it out. And how can fans find you on YouTube?
Yeah, they can just type in Comic Genius Show.
Okay.
Type in those 3 words, and you'll see a microphone with a light bulb on top of it. And it's kind of a funny little light bulb that's actually part of the lettering of Comic Genius. So yeah, look for that logo with the little light bulb with the little smile in it, or the laugh emoji in the light bulb,
Okay.
and Comic Genius Show on YouTube. So be sure to check it out. Subscribe. We love people to subscribe, and you'll see all of the great comics that we had to showcase to you guys. And I tell you, Maurice, a lot of these comics have moved on to bigger things. They've got 1 million followers now. I mean, they've already had some momentum before they came to us, some of them, but now they've even taken off further, and they really take to heart these veteran comics, giving them real strong critique. Because Maurice, we didn't really get that, Maurice, right? Like,
Right.
we didn't have anybody in the game that's been in the game a long time to give us advice. I remember coming out of New York doing comedy, Maurice. I had people like Tracy Morgan that was headlining shows I was a part of, right?
Yes.
And I would say, Tracy, what did you think? Did you see my set? What did you think? And this was before he blew up, and he was like, well, just keep doing what you're doing.
As only Tracy Morgan could say it, just keep doing what you're doing, man. But
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
that's it. What am I doing? You know what I mean? What is it? Yeah. So we have an opportunity. So the comics that part of Comic Genius Show, they have an opportunity to actually hear from these vets, and they give them real better critiques, that just keep doing what you're doing. There's a lot more to this, as you know, Maurice, than just telling jokes.
Yes.
There's timing, there's delivery, there's, you know what I mean? So it's, we unpack all that in the show, and it's a lot of fun.
It looked like a lot of fun. You had the show that I watched had E Boogie, Charles Kane, and I believe it was Sean Sarvis and Gordon Douglas, who are very good comedians, and all of which I don't know Gordon that well, but the other 3 I know pretty well. And the participants was Chris Womack, who's I know very well. Chris and his wife Dawn I know very well, and you also had Christian McCartney. You talk about an up and comer. Christian McCartney is going to be a household name in 5 years,
or even sooner than that.
It might be sooner than that. I mean, it might be sooner than that. I mean, he's only 23, 24 years old, and the young man is going to blow up. I'm telling you right now. Christian McCartney, watch out for him, folks. You're going to find out who he is very soon.
And his style is very refreshing. It's very refreshing because a lot of comics, they're very just talking about stories, which is fine. And he does that too. But he also layers it with facial expressions and physical comedy and voices. And you don't really find that too often. So it's good to kind of see, the old Jim Carrey, the old Tommy Davidson, the new generation of that era to come and take on that mantle. And I think Christian McCartney is doing that.
He's definitely doing that. You mentioned Tommy Davis. Tommy Davis is one of the funniest guys I've ever seen on TV. Tommy Davis, I'm going to say this real quick and get out. I don't want to dwell on Tommy too much, but Tommy Davidson disappeared all of a sudden. He was on In Living Color. I thought he was the funniest guy on the cast. I mean, Tommy Davidson disappeared. And he just came back out, and to play maybe 10 years ago, he kind of came back out. He's resurfaced, and you see him in different places. But I just had to throw that out. I love Tommy Davidson.
And let me just add on to that a little bit too, and then I'll move with you.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to meet Tommy Davidson. I interviewed him on a podcast show, much like yours, and I was asking him questions because you don't get, often you don't have that opportunity. So I asked him, I said, so you're on the lineup with all of these other great comics. Like, how do you guys determine who goes first? How do you determine who goes second? I mean, all of you is like superstar funny guys. And he said this, which is very crucial. And I try to share this with a lot of comics, and I try to keep this in mind too. He says, everyone has a chance to throw a free throw shot.
Okay.
Because we're all on the same team. We're
Yeah.
all on the same team.
Yeah.
It's your turn to throw your free throw shot.
I love it. Great analogy. Because, a lot of comedians get in their feelings about opening, featuring, and headlining. And it's a team. Look, this is a team effort. We're all here to shine and to walk away looking good. Everybody, and that's the mindset. But unfortunately, in our business, we have people that are too concerned about their little cubicle world they're in. This is about me, and it's not that way. And I've never heard an analogy like that. That's a great way to look at it.
And it
So
kills it takes the pressure off of us.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? If someone blows up the spot and they can leave them, they can drop the mic, right? And then we're like, oh my gosh, how I'm gonna follow that? Either that, or it's like you're rolling up your sleeves, like, okay, all right, I see, I got you. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Or you know what I mean? It could go either way. But if you have in your mind that you're gonna do what you do, and you're gonna add to the laughter, you're gonna add to what's already been put out there,
Yeah,
and we're all on the same team, that kind of kills the whole egos. Because and I know we've been in this business. There's a lot of egos when it comes to certain comics. You know what I'm saying? And
a
if
lot of
someone
egos.
feels like they can headline, or somebody feels like, oh, why you got me going third? Why you got me going? I can. You know what I mean?
No,
You
it's
just do
it's.
what you do, and we
I
all
love
win.
the analogy. I love it. I love it because you don't hear that a lot in the comedy game. I mean, unfortunately it's an individual sport like tennis or golf, and that's how it's approached. But the reality is, you should look at it as a team approach because you're going in there for the audience members to walk away feeling like that was a great show. That's what you want. You don't want anybody to go, oh, the first two guys are good, but the third guy, yeah, you don't. No, 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 no. So and there's a lot of ego with comedians, man. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of soap operas going on. There's a lot of, so I love hearing Tommy Davidson's take because you don't hear that often. You don't hear that very often, and it should be approached in that manner. We're all trying to get our own shine. We're all trying to make. Back in the day when I was coming along, it was about getting on David Letterman. Everybody want to get their 5 minutes on the Tonight Show or David Letterman. I'm showing my age, but that's how it was back in the day. You just and it kind of becomes an individual effort. As long as I'm great, I'm good, and that's the wrong approach, particularly when you're doing a show. Everybody's got to be great. You want these people to call you back anyway. That being said, Coy, thank you for offering that. We are going to go. I don't know. You told me yesterday that you were not going to make the LOL GCA comedy conference that's going to be held in Atlanta, Georgia on June 1st. And that's run by Roxanne David, and I think Willie Brown's a part of it. Belina Metcalf's a part of it. And they're combining the Christian Comedy Association. So, and here's another thing about division and separation. If you know anything about LOLGCA, it's usually the black comedians in the Christian world that go there, and the white comedians in the Christian world typically would go to the CCA. And I don't think it was something that was done intentionally. People just kind of flocked to separate conferences. And all of a sudden, someone came up with the ingenious idea, hey, why don't we all get together? You think? And I don't know who came up with it, but I'm glad that we're all coming together, and it's going to be called the Uncompromised Conference. A couple of years ago, I think in 2022, you won a Pioneer Award at the LOL GCA. But what do you think about the coming together of the two conferences?
Yeah, well, quick big shout out to Miss Clarice, who's part of the LOLGCA. She's the president and
Yeah,
founder. And by the way, Maurice, we should tell the audience, what does LOLGCA stands for?
let's do that. Great idea, Coy.
Right.
So
So I was waiting.
I'll tell. It's the Living on Laughter Gospel Comedy Association.
Okay.
And usually that's where a lot of African American Christian comics kind of, tend to navigate to. And so anyway, that's the LOLGCA.
Yeah, yeah. And CCA, of course, is
The Christian Comedy Association.
right. So it's just like Christian music. You got you got the contemporary Christian music, and then you
That's
got the
it.
gospel music.
That's it. That's it. And here's
You
the
know what I'm
thing
saying?
about it.
Now,
Coy,
now,
yeah,
now, a lot of the worship music of today, a lot of the everyone listens to worship music today now,
yeah,
and a lot of the black folks are playing worship music today too. Now, big shout out to Fred Hammond. I think he was kind of he introduced it more to the African American culture with the worship music, and not to take away anybody else who was around that time too. But I just remember growing up, a lot of that sound came from Fred Hammond. But anyway, I just said that to say basically, Maurice, is that um, Miss Clarice is wonderful. She's a great person. She, anytime we would do the back to the, not to plug the Comic Genius show again, but she would come to mainly, I would say, the majority of the shows that I had.
okay,
She was very supportive. She's always been supportive. And
very
I
supportive.
guess with the LOLGCA, it just didn't get enough support as far as getting out there to the other folks.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just saying maybe that's why the people from the CCA hasn't really been to the LOLGCA, because then maybe they haven't known, they didn't really know about it like that.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the CCA used to be the place where everybody would go before the LOLGCA was even around.
Oh
The
wow, okay, I
CCA
didn't
would
know that.
be right. Am I right? So everybody
You
would go
could
to
be.
this.
I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, CCA, man, that was like back in the day, right? So the CCA had already been established, has already happened, and then for whatever reason, it just wasn't happening no more. You know what I'm saying? I think COVID, I think that was the last CCA I can remember. Now I know they've transferred over to something else, more of a retreat. But as far as a conference, um, they weren't doing it no more. So LOLGCA kind of took the mantle. Now, just to say this, Maurice, there's been a sprinkle of other folks in there. It just wasn't all black folks.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? So it's
Oh
been a
yeah, yeah,
sprinkle.
yeah, yeah,
It's been a light sprinkle of other people up in there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
That doesn't have this shade of color.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so it's been growing, and it's been consistent every year. So I think as you talked about this, the CCA and the LOLGCA coming together, I think is a fantastic thing. It's exciting. Unfortunately, I wish I could be there, but I'm not. I won't be able to make it. However, you'll be there. I'll be looking forward to hear a great report from you on how everything worked out. But I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's just building a bridge, man. With different cultures, with different comics. Because at the end of the day, funny is funny. And what I mean by that is, everyone has its style. Some people might want the gospel style. Other people might want to hear the Christian contemporary style. You know what I'm saying? You have different facets of different people telling different stories from where they're from, whether they're from Texas or whether they're from New York or whether they're from LA or whether they're from, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So everyone has their own experience. And I think it's great to be in a place where everyone is sharing those different experiences and sharing the knowledge and actually, I guess, having a fellowship with each other and really knowing that, hey, look, we're all in the same game here. You know what I mean? And we're all
Well,
believers.
well, and I have a show called Breaking Down the Four Walls where I do a Bible study with Christian comedians. And I've been doing that for like maybe, I don't know, 5 years. Certainly when COVID started, I developed, another part of my repertoire God gave me. So, okay, well, I can't go out and do stand up anymore. So I'm going to create this. And through that, I started meeting a lot of white comedians that were Christians that I had never met before, and found out a lot of them were going to CCA. I didn't even know CCA existed. And now you start thinking, man, we should all come together And thank God, finally we are. Again, I don't think it was done intentionally. I just think it was just one of those things. And then somebody just got the idea, hey, look, we all need to come together. So June 1st in Atlanta, Georgia, the Uncompromised Conference comes to the fore. And it's the combination of those two groups. And I can't wait. June Colson is going to be the keynote speaker there, who was a regular on my Breaking Down the Four Walls show. I could just go on and on about how many comics I met at CCA. So, yeah, I'll give a full report for it. It's going to be an excellent conference. I have a vibe that this thing's going to be really good, and I'll definitely give a great report. I mentioned COVID, and during that time, I got to ask you a question. Matter of fact, I'm going to play a trailer of a documentary that a comedy friend of mine did a few years ago. Actually, he did the trailer. The documentary is still in the works, but it talks about how comedy became offensive and harder in the minds of some people out there, and it created this thing called the cancel culture. And they started attacking comedy for a brief period. We can talk about Will Smith coming up on stage and slapping Chris Rock. I mean, things got very. We can talk about Dave Chappelle, who came under fire for one of his Netflix specials attacking the LGBTQ community and what have you. But comedy got kind of grimy and tough after COVID. I'm going to play the trailer that my buddy did of this documentary, the trailer of it. It has not been released yet, but I'm going to play it, and then we'll come back, Coy, and we'll talk about it.
Cancel culture. We're talking about censorship in comedy. Do you think that cancel culture exists in comedy?
Basically, in a nutshell.
Definitely feel like, as bizarre as it sounds, like there's a war on jokes right now.
Cancel culture, it's such a misdirected umbrella term. You can't police what is subjective.
Oh, wow! Like, you kind of have to live your life bulletproof now. You just have to.
Greatest night in the history of television.
You can't say an inappropriate joke that doesn't have the right context.
There's always going to be some sliver of cancel culture, of woke, of political correctness.
You're not funny, and this is how you have to do the joke, because I know how funny jokes work. That's not the joke.
I don't believe people get canceled. I believe that they have a shift in their audience.
Put your hands together for Mr. Joe Rogan!
When people say somebody is canceled, I think it just means, oh, we found they did or said something that most people don't like.
I date a lot of bimbos. That's the problem, man.
So what?
So, let's think about that joke in today's culture.
Let's think about that joke in today's culture. Coy, your immediate impressions of that trailer.
Well, first of all, the documentary looks fantastic.
Yes, it does.
It looks really good. Second of all, it's a brilliant documentary for someone to even bring that out. You know what I mean? Because we hear that so often, but someone actually got the perspective of comedians to talk about it.
Yeah,
and they got who they could get, which is okay. I don't know, where do I begin, Maurice?
Well, I think that, to give more context to what Donnie is trying to bring out in the documentary, I think that, and this is just my personal experience on stage after COVID, to me, it seemed easier to make audiences laugh, immediately after COVID, because everybody wanted to get out. And then after a while, you start to realize people were getting offended more so than they were prior to COVID, depending on the kind of joke that you're telling.
Yeah, but it depends on the audience too.
And it also depends on the audience. But we just saw Will Smith go up there and slap Chris Rock. And I did mention Dave Chappelle, and his issue with the LGBT community. But I think that cancel culture is a real thing. I think it's easier to offend groups out there, whereas before, you could pretty much say anything and everybody kind of got it. If you didn't like it, you just didn't go to the comedy show again. It's just not your thing. But now people have to kind of, make statements about comedians and what they said and what they talked about and things of that nature. I was just wondering if you had a particular opinion about cancel culture and audiences today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different, it's very, I mean, just the culture itself is very sensitive. I mean, you can't have, I sometimes I'll go on YouTube and I watch old episodes of Mad TV and in living color.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, yo, they couldn't get away with this today. You know what I mean? It would be very, very offensive, right? It's just the times that we live in now. As far as it just depends, because sometimes some of these comics, they want to be not necessarily canceled, but it like they might say something, and before you know it, they get 15 minutes of fame, and they ride that train for a hot long time. You know what I mean? Because of something that they said that was very controversial. It's not as prevalent as it was, I think, when it started out. I mean, I think Dave Chappelle has been one of the few that can get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, he is literally a unicorn when it comes to like he's just untouchable. Like he can say stuff and you'll hear a little bit about it, but it's forgotten. Like other people, you say something about a particular group and they gotta send an apology letter. They gotta, you know what I'm saying? They gotta do all that they can do for, in the industry. But Dave Chappelle never really had to do that. I mean, he cleaned it up really well. I mean, no one really comes after him after all that he said. He's just different. I mean, it's, to me, Maurice, it's kind of like you just kind of have to roll with the punches. I mean, there's a particular joke that I say, and I've heard. Well, I had a particular person who records me when I do my shows, right? And they're always scanning the audience to see what the response is going to be. And I tell you, Maurice, I would do this joke every single time, and it would be hilarious, and people would almost bawl over laughing. Now, when I do it, half the audience is in it, the other half is like, you're offended, but I'm not even talking about you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even talking about you. It seems like the people that are offended the most are the ones that want to be offended for other people. Yeah. It's like you're not even in that group. You don't even look like who I'm talking about. But you're offended for what? You're not, is it just, you don't have, if you have self-esteem issues, you're at a comedy show. You know what I'm saying? There used to be a time where people were scared to sit in front of the front row. The front would be empty. The second row would be half empty because they knew what they were coming to, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's crazy. So it's like, okay, why are you going to be upset? Why are you going to be offended? You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, Maurice, here's the thing. You got some comics, that's all they do is talk about the people. They do crowd work. And that's all they do. People come pay money for them to talk about them. You know what I'm saying? If you got a crazy hairdo, why you sitting in the front two rows? You know what I'm saying? Like you expecting to get talked about. You're expecting to get talked about. Yeah. So if you're gonna be offended, I mean, look, we got to do what we got to do, and there's some comics I think, they do say stuff that's pretty shocking. Oh man, but I mean, there used to be. We could go down the list of old school comedians, and no one gave them no type of controversial or cancellation because you know who they were. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't.
I mean, you can go back to, and I always say this, but you can go back to 1972, well, 3 or 4, whatever, and you could see Red Fox as Fred Sanford using the N-word on time TV, and not only did no one get mad, they loved it. I mean, you pull that off, in 1974 in prime time and kill, you're good. So to get to your point about dealing with it, it's like it's on you as the entertainer to figure it out. And I think also part of the problem is, and this is the old grouchy man saying, "Get off my lawn." But kids are sensitive now. I mean, like we grew up in a time where, you're going to get spanked. You did something wrong. Even the principal could spank you back in the day. Mom will say, go get that branch, break it off because I'm going to whip you with it. Go get me a good branch too. Don't bring me a weak one. I mean, that kind of stuff went on. I remember one time, dude, I was having a rock fight on top of the school, and my dad walked down to the school and said, you come down now. You come down from there, right? I mean, I got all my friends out there, and then there's this little metal piece of apparatus, big piece of metal apparatus that you had to use to climb down from the from the school. I got like 15, 20 kids out there, and now you can hear a pin drop, right? And I'm climbing down to go get my whipping, right? Because you could hear every little sound that metal made sounded 15 times louder. Because everybody knew, oh, he's going to the gallows. I mean, it would have been a perfect time to play the Jaws theme. It's like, here's the deal. Here's the deal. I got whipped in front of all my friends by my dad, and 30 minutes later, guess what? I'm back out in the street playing. I don't even think about it anymore. Of course, your friends are going to joan on you, and, they're going to give you the business, but hey, I've seen them get whipped too in front of their, by their parents, So kids, people of this generation are just sensitive, and you have to be careful. And I like what you said too, Coy, and you got to figure it out. That's our job as entertainers. We got to figure it out. How do we get around this? So I just wanted to get your commentary. I love the documentary. It's Donnie Stopa is the comedian that created that doc. And he's still working on it. I think he's in contractual negotiations with a couple of platforms. It's going to be great. Matter of fact, he's got like 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So he talked to a ton of comedians, secular and Christian, and it's going to be awesome, dude. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it. People have many different takes. Comedians have many different takes on audiences today, and this thing called cancel culture. Like I said, it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it messes up your jokes because we like you want to keep the funniest stuff you got. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how old it is. If it's funny, it should remain funny. But now we live in a different culture where if you talk about a certain type of group of people, now it's like it's a pause. It's like, well, this joke used to kill. Why is a stereotype now not funny?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't we laugh at stereotypes again? Why can't we laugh at observations that everybody knows happens to be true about a particular group of people?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But now it's like, ooh, what's the ooh for? Why are you oohing? What's the oh? What? What did I say? What did I do? What?
Yes. It's like, come on, y'all. This is a comedy show. We can do the daggone Trump rally some other time. Anyway, let me just say this to you, Coy.
I don't know. What do you mean by that? I don't know.
There it is. There's another one, right? But I'm not half the man my dad was, so I raised my kids differently. Like I'm part of the softer approach of this generation.
Well, you have to be, because if not, social services will be at your door.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a different set of rules. So I mean, by the time my kids got, my kids are all grown now, 28, 26, 23. But when they were like 13, 14, 16, I stopped. I looked at them. I went, oh, my God, what have I done or not done? Hey, but look, Coy, but then when they get to the 19, 20, 21 mark, you go, oh, they were listening. They got it. Because I didn't do what my dad did, but I talked their heads off. I lectured them a lot. And then you go, oh, man, it paid off.
Just stop talking. Just whip me, please.
Just whip me, please.
I'm surprised because some kids they need that. Like the talking don't work for them. But I guess all the talking work for you.
Well, I saw the results. You know, I was like, oh man, they're
Okay.
doing
Okay. So you
everything
saw the
that we
results. That's good.
discussed. Yeah, I was like, and I thank God for that because I didn't have the same. Like you say, we're dealing with a different set of rules and regulations. But when you have Christ and He's the one that's running the show, you're gonna get it right. You know, it may not look like you got it right, but Christ said, no, I got this. You were never in control. You just did what I told you to do, and you're just thankful. You know, you're just thankful. But it's a different day and age, man. It's a different day and age. Let me switch gears on you, Coy, and we're talking about comedy. I mentioned Red Fox, and there were some other great comedians from back in the day. In your mind, who is the best stand-up comedian you've ever seen?
That I've ever seen.
That you've ever seen or know
in
of?
person.
Whether it's at the movies, you saw it on the video, or you heard an album. You know, either one.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go with Sinbad. I just have
Oh wow,
to. I gotta go with Sinbad.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, I gotta go with Sinbad, and I'm gonna tell you why. Is because, and Bill Cosby would come at a second, close second.
Okay.
Because you can't forget the guy who talks about,
Yes.
Yes. So now, but Sinbad, Sinbad, I saw this brother. Sinbad is what got me into comedy.
Okay.
He got me into comedy because I saw him. He was a headliner, and this was in Norfolk, Virginia. He headlined. It was Kim Coles and it was Chris Thomas. Chris Thomas opened up. Kim Coles was middle, and then Sinbad closed it. And Sinbad, he did like at least 2 hours off the audience.
Yeah. How about that? The dude was amazing. Sinbad was amazing.
I was like, yo, how is this possible? Right? I was just yo, is this his material, or maybe it isn't, or what? I mean, it just blew my mind. And I was just thinking like, man, that just stuck with me. You know what I'm saying?
He was a master ripper, dude.
I just believe that I could probably do the same, like not so much like be on his level at that time, but I said, well, let me just start with Arsenio Hall and you know what I'm saying, see what he talk about, things that make you go, let me start there. What makes me go, that's funny. And but yeah, I would say, Maurice, to answer your question, Sinbad, I think I'll give him the big shout out to him. And I met him a few times in person, but I've seen him live, and each time it's consistent, man. Like he's a master of this thing. And I did see Bill Cosby live too in Baltimore at the Hippodrome, and he was the same. He did about the same amount of time with the audience.
Okay.
But I just think it's just different levels to this. You know what I mean? Because the storytelling, you got the storytelling, and then you got Sinbad, who's just, he's just like, he talks about life, and that joint is masterful without using no curse words. Masterful.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about Sinbad and Cosby, as you mentioned, that they didn't use curse words. Jerry Seinfeld is another one that's masterful at comedy without using curse words. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Brian Regan or not.
Oh, yeah, Brian Regan. I opened for Brian Regan at the DC Improv.
Oh, wow, that is huge.
Yeah, I opened up for him and his brother.
Wow. Yep. And Dennis Regan's very funny as well. So, yeah, they're both good. They're both really, and they don't cuss.
Man, yo.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. They you talking about a comic genius?
Yes.
Those guys, Brian Regan, Sinbad, all them jokers, they're geniuses, man. They're comic geniuses for real.
I would totally agree with you. And I think the fact that they do it without, the expletives, I mean, and I think Brian Regan and Jerry Seinfeld both were asked why, they don't curse on stage. They were like, do you guys ever curse? And Jerry Seinfeld was like, oh yeah, I cuss all the time, but I don't think it belongs on the stage. And I thought that was an interesting answer. But as you talk about Brian Regan and Dennis, for example, like they're both brilliant in different ways. Like Brian is just a great actor of his comedy. I mean, his next level. And then Dennis is just brilliant with words. You know what I mean? And they don't cuss. You know, they don't go to the gutter. So Sinbad cuss. All those names you threw out are excellent. I think for comedy itself, for myself personally, I mean, I always go to Richard Pryor just because, but he was terrible with language, as we all know. I look at Richard and I go, here's a man, and we know this to be true now, that was suffering from great mental anguish from his personal life. You know, Richard Pryor. And he just simply espoused it on stage in a very comedic way. But Richard was telling you his life. It was unfiltered. It was uncensored. And I think it was therapeutic for him. So from that standpoint, I guess for me as a comedian who appreciates honesty, it was, I mean, I just don't think it gets better than him. Expletives aside, because I don't.
Yeah. I mean, everyone says Richard Pryor is the GOAT. Like,
I think he's the GOAT.
He's a comic GOAT. Like,
he's a comic GOAT.
You know, and it's funny too, Maurice. Richard Pryor, when he started out, he wasn't cursing.
No, he wasn't. And he actually became, you know, I don't know if you know the whole story about why he transitioned, but Richard Pryor was doing comedy in clubs where Frank Sinatra performed and, you know, some of the old greats. He was the only black guy at a lot of these white clubs. And he kind of stopped in them, and he was telling a lot of jokes that were just really, quite frankly and honestly, straight up corny. But he was such a good comic, he was able to pull it off pretty well. And he stopped in the middle of his set once and said, "This just ain't for me. It's not me. It's not who I am." He just felt like he was being a fraud. And all of a sudden, he popped up at the University of California in Berkeley. And he did a special out there at 71, and it was Richard Pryor Unleashed. And it was a new kind of Rich, where he was like, man, I just got to tell the truth, man. I got to be me. And that's when he became great. And I really believe, again, I got to say this, Coy, expletives aside, I really believe that's the core of being a great comedian. You have to be yourself. You have to talk about what's funny to you and live in it, you know, and forget about what everybody else is thinking that you're supposed to do. Just stay in your world, and they're going to feel it. Everybody's going to feel you. You know what I mean?
That's
you got to
true.
be yourself.
That actually, because when I started doing comedy, I was doing secular comedy only, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you go to church enough, and the right people tell you need to come to church, and they start, you know, you start getting into that, you know, start making that part of your life.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you know what? Let me try this over here. You know, let me try it in the church. And at the time, there were a few Christian comics that I knew, as far as that had cassette tapes and had CDs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, you know, and so they were funny and everything like that. But I was so scared and so nervous. And see, the thing about it is, I never was really a dirty comic when I started out. Like I said, Sinbad is who I looked up to. So
yeah,
I never was really, I never was a vulgar comic. Now, there was some sexual stuff I talked about that was still, I would say, PG-13.
Yeah.
Like I told you before the interview, I said the N-word, you know, not just in certain places that I had to show a Brooklyn audience that I was about a full-fledged Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying, that I wasn't no punk and y'all ain't gonna about to boo me. So I'm just letting you know. But then I started doing the churches and I wasn't doing well. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what's happening?
Okay.
Why aren't these people feeling me? And just to go by what you said, I wasn't being myself.
Yeah.
And then once I said, you know what? Let me be myself and tell these jokes and not try to be this super, holier than thou person to appease
Right.
and to
Right.
get acceptance from them. I got to be myself. And after I did that, I had no more problems. I was doing really well.
And I think that's the key. When you look at comedians in the Christian world, and you and I, we had a chance to speak yesterday. When you look at the Christian world of comedy and the lure of the world that has taken some of our good, Christian comedians, that becomes concerning to me because, once you sign up for the army of the Lord, that's a different narrative. Like, you got to rep the kingdom. And I'm not talking about being perfect and, being this person in your mind or what you think the audience is thinking you ought to be. I'm saying you got to rep the kingdom. And I think it's very obvious what that means when you get up there. I don't think anybody needs to tell you what it is. Because you got the Holy Spirit. You know what that what that means. And when you see someone that gets out of character or get out of that level of repping the kingdom, I mean, when you see it. And we've had some people in our army that have gone to the other side on stage. Right. And I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? What is that? I mean, I mentioned one comedian that's got a household name, more or less. I mean, she's really, really good right now, but she started out as a Christian comic. And when, again, I got to emphasize, when I say Christian comic, I'm not talking about being holier than thou. I'm not talking about any of that or being a Bible, joke. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being a Christian comic. You can even be a comic and rep the kingdom and not say you're a Christian comic, but you know what I'm saying? But that's what you're up there to do. You're up there to rep the kingdom. So when you get out of that and start going for the money and you go, well, I'm going to bump all those unctions from the Holy Ghost. I'm going to do what these people over here are doing because they like me and they think I'm funny and they're willing to pay me. That becomes concerning.
Mm.
And I've seen some comics, in our army go over to the other side. I'm like, and look, I don't want to be judgmental, but like I said, your eyes don't lie. Isaiah Thomas of the Detroit Pistons said something, and I'm not an Isaiah Thomas fan, but he said something very interesting one day when he was talking about the success of the Bad Boys. He said, the film don't lie. Well, and so, I mean, you know when you're witnessing something that's not quite right. You feel what I'm saying, Coy?
Yeah. It's there's this thing called conviction. Does that still exist today?
Yeah.
I think it's like you said, it's this bad boy syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like it's a track, you know what I mean? It's like there's certain comedians, because when we do the Comic Genius show, when we do other shows or whatever,
yeah,
there's always a question like, well, how clean do you know what I'm saying? Like, well, is this type of clean or is it that type of clean? Or can I say this? Can I be this edgy? Whatever. Can I?
Right.
And it's like, but what does it do for you? I guess it does. You kind of want to be cutting edge. And I guess people like that feel of kind of being edgy and kind of getting that edginess. I guess it does something to your adrenaline. I mean, you tell me, Maurice, what does it do? Like, does it make, to get people to moan and groan or to get people to feel embarrassed or just put their heads down like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I mean, what does that do for that person to make them continue to do that? So they're like, oh, well, that was okay. So now let me go over here and keep going. You know what I mean? I don't know how it starts.
Well, I can tell you that, we talked about this yesterday too. I mean, I was someone that would throw the N word out from time to time, and I wasn't doing it in my mind anyway. That's how I perceived it, which made me continue to tell that particular jokes or jokes of that ilk minimally was that, my wife had to step to me and say, that you need to stop doing that. Right. The Holy Spirit was using my wife to tell me you need to stop, and then
did she use the N-word to tell you to stop? No, I'm just joking.
Well, sometimes and then that's funny. Then my oldest son even told me, hey, Dad, you need to pull back from that. So long story short, it's about having a support system. If you're repping the kingdom, if you're not listening directly to the Holy Ghost will have somebody else tell you that you need to stop. You know what I mean? And so that comes down to you deciding whether or not you're going to obey. Okay. Boy, I mean, that's just that simple. You know when the Holy Spirit is talking to you. And so my own personal experience, I've done it. I got traction in secular rooms with the joke. I mean, it's funny in secular rooms. I could have kept going that way. And I was like, nah. If you have to do that, then you're not doing this for the Lord.
But here's the thing too. See, you had a support system.
Yeah.
You had a support group. And comedy, being a stand-up comic, if you don't have that, and if you're around, basically stand-up comedy is it can be a very lonely place.
Yeah.
You could be a total person by yourself. You know what I'm saying? And the only people that you're around are probably people in the secular realm.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking about, your sanctification. They're not thinking about that.
True.
They're gonna think
there's no question.
So there's no one that's gonna challenge you. There's no one that's gonna keep you accountable. And if people are showing you love, I mean, there's a lot of comics. I mean, let's be real. A lot of us got into comedy because we wanted to feel loved. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's different levels to this for some people, very therapeutic for some people. So it's like, once you get that applause, once you get that acknowledgement that you might not have gotten when you was a kid, or whatever the reason is, or maybe you've always gotten the attention, who knows? You was a class clown, you always been a class, whatever the case is, you want to stay in there because it feels good to you. You know what I mean? You make you feel accomplished, like, wow, I'm doing this and it's doing great. You know what I'm saying? And that's all your focus is.
Well, it's a drug. And then you have to decide whether or not you're going to listen to Christ or not, because that elixir, that feeling of euphoria, it was given to you by God. But if you don't recognize that, the devil will pervert that gift.
Woo.
See what I'm saying? The devil will pervert that gift that's intended to be used by Christ. You see, and that's the issue there. And once you've already signed up for the team, hey man, there should be no doubt at that point when Coach Holy Ghost is talking.
Woo.
There should be no question about that, Coy. If you really signed up for the team, I'm getting on my soapbox. I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm just saying I've been tempted to go to misappropriate and misuse and abuse the gift because of that euphoria.
Wow. Yeah.
You see, so it just comes down to whether or not you're going to obey at the end of the day the Holy Spirit, and if he'll find a way to get your attention. Depends on how far down that road you want to go. You see what I'm saying? But he's gonna get your attention.
I tell you, and it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's interesting because, just like you have your film, I watch a lot of films, I watch a lot of TV, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is only because I want to kind of study the craft. And there's actually been like this with what's the name? Jordan Peele. He was like the host of the Twilight Zone for a couple of seasons, right?
Yeah.
And there was an episode on the very thing that we were talking about.
Okay.
And he went further and further and further in until the point where it just got real crazy, where he was, I don't know which episode it was. I think it was a comedian or something. But he would say these really outlandish things, and he would get on people, and then after a while, he would say, "You disappear" or something. I don't know, but they would disappear. His audience started disappearing. You got to check it out. And then there was another, I think, The Equalizer with Queen Latifah. I think there was an episode where the comedian was in his feelings because another comic was getting more tour dates, and he's the one that helped him get started, and he got jealous and tried to kill him. So I mean, that's movie and that's television, but
yeah,
the real life is you could really get yourself in a situation.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you on the 9 o'clock news and OD'd or something. You know what I mean? I'm just saying you don't want to go that far.
Coy, I'm 100% with you. The devil is not taking any prisoners, dude. This is not a game. He's not taking any prisoners, and you go too far down that road, man, you may not be able to get back. And sometimes God takes his hand off if you keep disobeying. Say, oh, really? Really? Okay. He's out, and you're done. But I'm going to leave it right there because God is a good God, and he's for us. And so I'm going to have to step out. We're running out of time. I could talk to you. I could go on and on this subject, dude, but we're going to have to wrap it up. Everybody, we're talking with comedian Coy LaSone on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on bogradio.fm. If you're coming in at the tail end, you're like, oh, man, I missed the convo. Not really, because you can listen to us on Spotify this evening and where all major podcasts are heard, and also every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Mountain on kchftv.org. You can listen to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show. Now, I'm not sure what Mountain means, but that's when you can listen. You can Google it. Anyway, hey, yo, Coy, thank you so much, dude, for being on the show, man. We got to talk again. This has been an amazing conversation. And listen, don't go anywhere because I want to talk to you offline here. But once again, thank you, Coy, for being on the show, and may the peace of Christ be with you and your family. God bless you.
Thank you for having me, Maurice Brown. Appreciate you, man.